Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hello again. We're back for episode 52 of the Near Memo. It's David, Mike, and me, Greg. And as always, we're talking about the week's developments in search, social, and commerce. And we are often challenged to figure out what we're going to focus on because there's a lot of interesting things going on. But we've decided here, and David is going to start us off with some interesting things that Google is doing with its AI Google Docs summaries and the implications for search with that.
Yeah, on that note of too many things to talk about, I'm going to cop out and combine two of them that I found interesting this week.
That's not a cop out. That's not a cop out, as long as it's artfully done.
They're in my mind, integrally related to one another. So the first was a link that I first saw from Marie Haynes, who noticed a product release in I think it was on the Google Cloud blog, which I guess is the umbrella organization for Google Drive and Google Docs. And so the new feature that just came out is an automated summary that will now show up sort of at the upper left-hand side of a Google Doc that will attempt to condense a multi-page doc into, a couple sentences. And it is editable. So if you're using this as a productivity tool, you can craft your own summary that you want people to read as an abstract or what have you. But Marie, I think, correctly pointed out just how how far along Google is with its AI in terms of understanding a long piece of content as a human being might understand it. And I think that the depth of their ability to do that has probably been underestimated by many of us, myself included. Now, I should say I tried to demo this feature in a handful of very long documents that I have in Google Drive this week. It apparently hasn't been enabled for my account yet or whatever. But so I can't speak to how good the summaries are. But I think Google is probably not going to release something this substantial, even in beta, without a significant degree of confidence. So I think that was an interesting product release from Google. And then sort of combining that with a really insightful post from Cyrus Shepard, formerly of Moz, now of Zippy, ZYPPY. And Cyrus did a very detailed analysis of which title tags Google was rewriting, which this has been a thing now in the search results for, 9 months or a year. SEOs have lost their we put all this really hard work into, targeting keywords on a certain page and crafting this really beautiful title. And then when the page actually ranks, something like 60% of the time, Google is rewriting the title. And so this has been a, sort of a bone that SEOs have been picking with Google, ever since this came out. And so Cyrus wrote this post about sort of how to combat their title rewriting. A couple of high level takeaways: keep your titles short, make sure that they match the H1, use dashes instead of pipes, which is I think at least in my old guy SEO mode, pipes have been sort of the preferred thing for a lot of SEOs who have been in the game for a while, and Cyrus found actually dashes are less likely to get rewritten than pipes. He also found writing things as a more or less as a sentence, as opposed to chunking things that Google can easily crop or rewrite. Anyway, it's a terrific post. And the takeaway for me of both of these things combined is just how good Google is getting at, again, understanding content, digesting content, and then as it relates to search, presenting what they think users would want to see about a given piece of content that's extracted and abstracted on the SERP itself. So I am really, really eager to try this feature in Google Docs. I think it could actually potentially be a useful SEO tool over time if you want to see how Google is understanding the content of a given web page. Marie Haynes hypothesized that probably the same AI that's driving these summaries is being used in search. And so I'm really interested to try this new feature out. And if those of you, if there are listeners or viewers out there who have had this feature enabled in Google Docs, I'd love to start a conversation on Twitter about how it's going and what you think of it. So that's my item for the week.
I had two thoughts. One was Darren Shaw's response to Cyrus's article was he liked, and this is something that I've done in local for many years, which is make very long title tags and let Google pick and choose based on the intent of the searcher, what title tags that reflect broadly both the intent of the site and the H1 and subheads of the site. And that has been a tactic in local. And Joel, who has tested this at scale, Joel Hadley from Patient Pop, determined that he got 15% more visibility from that. So there's two ways to approach this. One is to sort of worry, as SEOs do, about the specific 64 characters that they want to show. The other is to be a little more expensive and let Google do their thing. The second thing, and this is something I've been looking at for the last year and a half, 2 years in great detail, is Google's understanding of images is rapidly going up concurrently with their understanding of text. And they are extracting a great deal of information from images, sometimes in a sophisticated way, sometimes like a third grader, but they are doing it and using it, and it's going to impact results. And I think that the idea that images as a technical SEO tactic is not just on the horizon, it's with us now and needs to be looked at in the same context as you're looking at content summaries.
Well, I mean, I'm led to think about kind of AI as a content generation tool, which is happening, increasingly. And how far down that path are we going to go? I mean, people have talked about it for news and for web copy and for ad copy. And it seems like that is an inevitable byproduct of this kind of advance. And we'll see more and more and more non-human generated content and copy across the web, which may ultimately not be a big deal, for certain kinds of mundane uses, but could just add more crap and spam everywhere, depending on how it plays out.
That's why E is so important, Greg.
And yes, right.
All of these BERT and all of these other acronyms that Google is coming out with. So,
yeah,
right. And from a social point of view, it makes more sense to me to use this as to summarize real human content, as David described, or to understand the content of the images I was talking about, than it does to generate more bullshit. We need more bullshit, like we need a hole in the head.
Yeah, but I mean, this goes to a larger point about search in general, right? I mean, it's like there's less and less trustworthy, really valuable content, even though there's more content overall. There's less that you want to pay attention to. You want to just find the most thoughtful and useful bits, and the rest is just kind of a version of spam. And I think this is the challenge that Google faces, is really, and this has been a challenge for many years, is how do they get to the stuff that is truly useful and not replicate the spam. I mean, I was there was an article this morning that I was trying to that I just copied the title. It was in an AMP page, and so I copied the title and was trying to get to the original article, and there must have been 10 links that had the same title and had some excerpt from the article, and that page is just completely worthless. It's like, I don't need to see anything other than the original source unless it's a gated piece of content, in which case I want to, see some alternative version of it. But there's just so much of that seems to show up in the SERP, so we'll see.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.